Um, oh yes, I wanted to go back maybe to the classroom. So in your syllabus, I read that you use peer editing in your class.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. So how do you do that in the class?
I usually break them up into groups of 3 or 4 people, depending on how long the story is. If I have, say, let's say you have an hour of class time, I might spend 5 minutes or so explaining what we're going to do. Then they would spend a half an hour reading and making notes on each other's papers. And then we would spend 15 or 20 minutes, I haven't really done the math on this, for an hour. But they would use the remaining time to go around the room talking about what they've learned. The reason why I like to have peer editors have more than one person look at a student's paper is you might get a bad editor. You might get somebody who gives you bad advice. And then the reason why I want people in the class to talk about it at the end is to sort of be sure that they understand what's the most important thing to do with this story before you bring it back maybe a week later for the teacher to read. I want to be sure they're clear on what their peers have asked them to do. And also I want to be sure that they agree with that. Because if you think you're getting bad advice from other student editors, you're going to make a half-hearted attempt at it. So we try to sort of figure out those issues. It's pretty rare that they disagree on what a story what needs to happen with a story. Right. And I also break down what's the order in which you should talk to a writer about how to work on a story. You want to start with something positive. What's the best thing about this story? That whatever you do, you shouldn't change. The reason why you want to start with that is if a writer thinks that you don't understand what you're trying for in the article and you don't appreciate what you've done well, they're going to shut down their reaction to everything else you say, and they're not going to buy into the changes you do want them to make. So you bring them over to your side, let them know, hey, you're doing some really great things here. Here's what I think you're doing best. Let's try to make the rest of the article as good as that part. The second thing usually is it well enough reported? Do you have enough sources? Are we looking at this from enough different angles? Because if it needs more reporting, that's the thing that's going to take the writer the most time to do. So they need to know that early. If you run out of time, they need to know, do I need to go talk to some more people? Are the facts solid enough here, and are the perspectives varied enough? And then you can get down to other issues of writing, like, is the main point of the story clear enough? Are there contradictions in the story that are, there are good contradictions and bad contradictions. There are the unintentional ones that are usually bad, where you seem to be saying, all right, there were 17 people at this event in one place, and then in another place it sounds like there are 25. So you need to clear up things like that. Right. Good contradictions are when people just disagree on an issue and you're citing different sources, and reasonable people can disagree. Right.
So what do you think the benefits are of peer editing for the students?
Well, there are a lot of benefits. They hear things that, in the course of a semester, they may get tired of hearing me tell them, you need to do this, you need to do this. When they hear it from another student, they say, well, it must be true, I guess. I like to think they value my advice, but you want to hear other people's advice too. I think it also helps if you've worked on other people's stories and then you return to your own story, you may find, hey, I caught these mistakes in their story, and now I realize I'm making the same mistake in my story. So it makes you, a little more aware of, it's hard to be an editor for your own story. It's hard to see the things that are wrong with it. For some reason, it's easier to see it in somebody else's story. You know what you're trying to say. Yeah. And you know what maybe you didn't put in the story, but you meant to. So things like logical gaps, it's easier to see in somebody else's story. Oh, the other thing with peer editing, and I think this is a good thing to do when a teacher's editing also, As I was taught a long time ago, don't fix somebody's story, don't copy edit for students. Circle mistakes. So that the student has to stop and think, what did I do wrong here? There's something wrong here, it's circled. And if they have to think through what's wrong with it and maybe go to a style manual and figure out what did I do wrong here, then they'll learn what they did wrong and they won't make that mistake again. If you just fix it for them, they'll say, oh yeah, that was wrong. Then they don't remember it. Of course, if they scratch their heads and go to their style manuals and still can't figure out why I circled something, they can always email me or come to me and I'll explain it to them. I want them to try on their own first.